All right. How many of you have heard of us before? You don't know our story at all. Okay, good. So the rest of you indulge just a second. So in 2003, I weighed 410 pounds, was on 3 prescription medications for high cholesterol, high blood pressure, respiratory issues. I was a ticking time bomb at the age of 32. And I had watched my brother, when he turned 32, have 3 heart attacks in the span of a week in 1999. And it nearly killed him at 32. And he was a big boy like I was at the time. I'm still a big boy, but I'm a healthy big boy. So, and so it woke me up. I needed to do something watching my brother. But what do? What's the default diet? What do you always turn to? Just yell it out. Keto.
No,
you do not turn to keto.
Weight
You do now. Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers. I heard Nutrisystem. I heard low fat. All of that crap. Dexatrim, Slim Fast. I did all that stuff, and it's so ironic. Slim Fast has a keto line now. Please avoid that crap. It's disgusting. It's gross. It's not real. But you get frustrated, and you try all of these things that you've heard are the right things to do, right? We've all done them. And I was the king of them. And they made me fatter and fatter and fatter. Until the point that her mom, God bless her, gave me a diet book for Christmas. Anybody have your mother-in-law give you a diet book for Christmas? Gee, thanks, Mom. But she gave me this book that totally revolutionized my life. It was Dr. Atkins' New Diet Revolution. Anybody read that book?
Yes.
So Dr. Atkins was such a forefather of knowledge on nutritional health. He would be smiling down from heaven today if he knew the legacy of what he started, what he helped to promulgate, that now is kind of this keto message. He was talking about this when I was in diapers. That's how long it's been being talked about. And it was talked about long before then as well. So I read this book and I'm going, this guy's wackadoodle. Eat less carbs. Doesn't he know you're not going to have any energy at all if you don't eat carbs? Eat more fat. He's a cardiologist telling people to eat the very substance that we know clogs your artery, raises your cholesterol, gives you heart disease. Don't we all believe that? Didn't we all believe that at some point?
Yeah.
And so I'm going, you know what? Slim Fast suck, Dexatrim pills suck, low-fat diets really suck. Let's give it a go. So January 1st, 2004, I went on the Atkins diet. First day was pure unadulterated hell because, and I did the numbers a few years back, I was eating about 1,600 grams of carbs a day back in the day. 16 cans of Coca-Cola, whole boxes of Little Debbie snack cakes, big plates of pasta. You name the crappy garbage, I was putting it in my pie hole. And no wonder I got to 410, right? How I never became a type 2 diabetic to this day, thank you Jesus, because it never happened. And it's still not happened. In fact, my A1C today is 5.0, which is really, really good if you're not sure about what that number means. We'll talk about that later. So I go on this diet, first day, I was like moaning on the couch, wasn't I?
You went from 1,600 to 20.
To 20 in one day.
Oh my God.
I've never done drugs, but I can get an inkling of what it was like detoxing from crack cocaine or heroin or something. I don't want to even know what that feels like ever again. But then something pretty cool happened after the first few days of that transition. It's like the floodgates opened and I just felt for the first time, probably in my entire life, normal. Wasn't hungry, wasn't irritable. Was I irritable? I was the first few days. But by day 4, 5, 6, I was getting better. I felt good. I had energy. Keep in mind, I was 400 plus pounds at the time, so I was still very obese. But I was already getting an inkling that there was something different about this way of eating. And those of you that are nodding your heads, you know, because when you first start, it can be that whoosh of just the energy and all this. So yes, I lost a lot of weight really fast. I lost, what was it, like 14 pounds the first 14 days. Was it 30 pounds at the end of the first month, 40 more pounds at the end of the second month, 100 pounds were gone in the first 100 days. And going,
Wow.
there's something to this diet.
Wow.
And I wasn't really worried about food quality or counting macros or counting calories. I was just keeping the carbs low. And I think there's a lesson there.
Yep.
Because now the keto is kind of popular, and a lot of you guys have my book Keto Clarity, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I think sometimes people, they like to have the minutia. Can I just encourage you to let that go and do what I did in 2004 and make it so super duper simple? If it means start at 20 grams and stay at 20 grams, don't worry about the rest. Don't worry about pricking your finger. I want you to do all that if it makes you feel good, but if it gives you a neurosis, that's no bueno, right? So I lost 180 pounds in that year. And at the end of the year, the Atkins company, which I hadn't bought any of their shakes or anything, but they heard I lost weight on the Atkins side. We heard you lost some weight. I had a little bit. And so they featured my story on the front of their website. I start getting emails from around the world. Who are you? How'd you do it? Where's your book? I was like, will you people leave me alone? But I was like, okay, maybe there's a story there that I could tell. And so I started a blog in April of 2005 called the Livin' La Vida Low Carb blog. Yes, I was a fan of Ricky Martin. Yes, he was relevant then. No, he's not in 2019. But now you Google Livin' La Vida Loca and you find my stuff. It's kind of funny. It turned out, I'll take Ricky Martin's money though. So a year later, this guy comes to me and he says, if you talk half as good as you write, you need to be a podcaster. This was 2006. The iPhone wasn't even invented yet. And I started a podcast. People were actually listening on their computer. That was the only way they could listen to podcasts. How many of you listen to podcasts now? How many of you listen on your computer? A couple of you. So, yeah, most people do it on their device now. So anyway, pioneered the health podcasting. There was really nobody doing that. And now we're the longest running health podcast, 1,500 episodes and counting. And I do a whole bunch of other work now as well. But this little lady, all along the way, was watching this wild and crazy dude she married go through and ketosis, beta hydroxybutyrate. And then she started having some health issues. So why don't you back up, talk about how you got into this space as well.
So my story, I've never had a major weight issue my entire life.
She was 90 pounds when I met her.
I was 3 months early being born, so I was 2.5 pounds when I was born, and so along with that comes a lot of health issues that would kind of manifest themselves later on in life. I mean, at age 11, I was already having joint pain. I was diagnosed with eye issues at the age of 2. I started wearing glasses because of the early birth. Mood disorders in my late teens, early 20s. I think I started to develop endometriosis at age 16, but wasn't diagnosed until 32.
That's a nasty autoimmune disease.
And then thyroid problems in 2015. I had already been keto at that point, but I think I went years and years undiagnosed with Hashimoto's. But
it's thyroid disease, it's also autoimmune.
right.
Yeah.
So I was watching him do his thing. Meanwhile, I was still eating my M&Ms and Skittles and Dr. Pepper. I went to the doctor in 2009, had my annual labs done. My triglycerides came back at 298, which is extremely high. Not as high as
under 100.
I've seen some as high as 800, even higher.
Right.
But I brought my lab work back home to Jimmy. You know what to do about that. And so at that point, I just cut out the M&M, Skittles, Dr. Pepper, and in 6 weeks, my triglycerides went from 298 to 136. Just cutting out I was still eating a bunch of other crap.
She loves her bread.
I did. Pasta, my dad's side of the family is Italian, so we love our pasta. But I started seeing small improvements just from cutting out those 3 things. In 2011, we went through embryo adoption. We had trouble having kids.
Because of endometriosis and
yeah.
other things.
In 2008, we were told we wouldn't be able to have biological children, so we went through embryo adoption in 2011, so got really, really serious about what I was putting in my mouth.
She was eating raw liver. That's how serious she was getting.
Yes.
It was very nutrient dense. There was a trick to it though. He would buy the liver, he would cut it up into small pieces, freeze it, and then I would take it out of the freezer, just pop it like a pill.
That's
like
still
we
a
do
great
like-
idea for all
Yes.
of you guys to do
I've
as
had to
well.
do that.
Have you done that?
When I was 18, I had mono.
Ah.
And my uncle, who was a naturopathic doctor, chiropractor.
Mentioned
and
that.
He was on the cusp of all this.
Yeah.
And he researched, he said, you're not putting another thing that is processed or cooked in your mouth except for liver, and you can partially cook it.
Wow. Make sure it's a grass-fed cow.
Yes,
Yeah.
quality matters.
Christine, this was for which of the ailments, the liver? For all?
So it was just to get the nutrients, because he had interviewed
She was
somebody.
pregnant, and
Yeah,
so
it was-
I had interviewed someone on the Living La Vida Low Carb show that was a pregnancy specialist, and he said, liver, because it's nature's vitamin.
it's got a lot of micronutrients in it,
So
so I
much
was
in it.
doing that. We ended up losing the twins 2.5 months into the
Oh,
pregnancy,
God.
but I started seeing major improvements in my health. My joint pain was finally going away.
She was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and I like to put the little quotes around it. How many of you women in here have been diagnosed with that? I mean, a bunch of women are just carte blanche. Oh, you have fibromyalgia, just they don't know what you got,
Yeah.
and they'll just call it that. And I'm sure there's other things that they do, but that's a big catch-all that they did for you.
Yep.
What was it? It was the low vitamin
It was low vitamin D, actually.
D. She had a 9 vitamin D level.
Normal ranges for vitamin D, doctors like to see it between
40 and
40 and 60. Mine was 9.
Nice.
So it was extremely low.
And you were also on
I was antidepressants.
Paxil
Yeah.
for 10 years.
Yeah.
And we got your vitamin D up, and you started eating healthy fats for keto.
Yep.
And you came off that drug, and you had been back on since.
Yeah, I
what's
did.
that, 9 years now?
I don't recommend going cold turkey. I went cold turkey
She
off of
did.
those medications.
There was a lot of crying there for a while.
That was not smart. But one of the things that happened that was just absolutely amazing to me, because up until this point, each year my eyesight was progressively getting worse. And if you're a diabetic, or if you know how blood sugar affects certain areas of the body, like your limbs and your kidneys and your eyes, my eyes were progressively getting worse each year. I had a cataract removed in my left eye. I'm blind in my left eye from birth because of the oxygen that they gave me, but I still developed a cataract in there, so they had to remove that in 2004. 4 months after I went keto, I had my annual eye exam. And lo and behold, my eyesight actually got better. I mean, so we had to go the opposite way.
Keep in mind, that's $1,500 a pop every time we went to the eye doctor. And we had to go the other direction? I was like, honey, go find those glasses you had last year.
Yeah.
They'll work now.
Yeah. So we did that, and I'm
And
happy.
Dad told me you'd be blind by 35. And
Yeah.
today she's 40, and she's still not blind.
Yeah, I'm not blind, and
Although I did tell her that if she goes blind, I get better looking, so. That's a great perk for me.
Aw. But since then, my prescription has not changed. The only reason why I had
How
to get a 7 years. 7 years.
7 years after every single year declining.
Yeah.
And then stable.
And the only reason why I had to get a new pair of glasses is because my other ones were so scratched
They
up.
were getting scratched from
Yeah.
having them for so long.
So that's
Because you were used to a brand new pair every year.
Yeah, I never had to deal with that problem. So in 2016, Jimmy was approached by the Nutritional Therapy Association. Hey,
Which
we
Mitzi
love-
is one, a
Yes.
nutritional therapist, yeah.
We love what you're doing. Would you like to go through the program?
They offered
And
that to
kind of-
me, and I'm like, I've got like 4 books that have a deadline and
Yeah.
podcasts. How about my wife Christine? Can she go through?
Yeah, so they offered for me to be able to go through the program in exchange for him advertising about it, and he came to our workshop weekends and documented the process, and I kind of went into it wanting to learn some stuff about myself because I was still struggling. Keto is great for a lot of things, but it doesn't, if you're not getting the micronutrients, it doesn't fix everything, and even some things it can't fix, but it's great. it's a low inflammatory diet, so it's good for a lot of things. I learned so much about my digestion. I mean, Mitzi can tell you it all starts with, when we look at clients, we either start with blood sugar or digestion, because it all starts there. And so I learned a lot of things about myself going through the program. When I graduated in November of 2017, I'm like, this information's got to get out there somewhere. So he pitched to his publisher for us to write a book. So I immediately graduated from the program and started writing on the book.
And we're still married after writing a book together, by the way.
That process,
Barely, no, I'm kidding.
it's a unique process because
Well, I had a flow to
Yeah.
writing books because
You
I've done a bunch of them at that point.
yeah.
And I was like, all right, honey, why don't you just go to the computer and just dump all that knowledge? I don't care, grammar, spelling, just get it out. And then I'll go in behind you and pretty it all up and make it flow.
Yeah.
And then we got to the nutritional therapy part because I did the keto stuff. I'm like, I know that like the back of my head. We get to the nutritional therapy stuff and I'm like, all right, prostaglandin? What the heck is that? You know, and so I explain it like I'm stupid, because I am.
We were joking every time I would say cholecystokinin or prostaglandin or something like that. You know, taking a shot.
Yes.
Yeah, it was great. So yeah, when he got to that point, he would call me he was sitting at my computer, call me in there, explain this. So I would sit down there and explain it to him. I would leave the room. I need you again, come here. So I eventually just sat down there and stayed down there.
Days upon days upon days.
Yeah, so that's kind of what it was like, and yeah, we are still married. But
I claim you.
I'll claim you too.
Kiss,
But
kiss,
that's-
kiss.
I
So
know,
you
right?
So you guys got the playing cards that has a copy of the book that we survived our marriage with. So.
You're even wearing the same colors too.
Well, and that was
Yeah,
dumb
we didn't
luck.
plan that, yeah.
She was in another room, and I was like, wait a minute, we didn't mean to match. So.
No, right?
It's good. Yeah, so.
That just happened. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is the labor of love that.
Oh, good.
Yeah. that-
Don't drop it on your foot; it'll
I know
hurt.
it's heavy. So we put so much information in this book. I think one of the things that really struck home with me was the micronutrient aspect too. And so in this book, we have a chapter on specifically minerals, specifically vitamins, all the signs of deficiencies of those minerals and vitamins. And in the back of the book, we have a list of foods. We list those vitamins and minerals and list food sources for each of those. So
Well, and in the keto world, we all focus on the macros,
Yeah.
fat, protein, carbs,
Yeah.
but you totally miss the micros when you do that. And what I've learned doing this for so long is the reason you get hungry, if you're on keto, anybody in here get hungry still, even the best high fat? Yeah, thank you for your honesty, by the way, because most people, I don't want to, because but the reality is you're not getting all the vitamins and minerals. And those things are so important, just like high fat, just like moderate protein, just like low carb. You got to make sure you're getting all those minerals. So that's where those liver pills will come in handy, because that's a huge power-packed punch of a lot of the vitamins and minerals that you need. But we tell you in the book, incorporate this low-carb vegetable, this meat, this over here, and then that way you get all of those vitamins and minerals. So then you can go many hours between meals, otherwise known as intermittent fasting, pretty darn easy.
Right.
yeah, I was basically done.
You're done. She's like, mic drop, done, I'm out.
Yeah.
So that's our stories. So now you know who we are. I want to know what's on your mind, because we can pretty much opine on real food, cholesterol, keto, fasting, what it's like to be a celebrity online. It really sucks. I'm just kidding. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Mary Jo. Welcome.
Hey, Mary Jo.
to our neck of the woods. And I heard a recent podcast of yours in this realm. So I know you inspire a lot of people by your podcasts and books, but what about friends and family? So I've been keto now for a year, I've lost the weight, I have all these health benefits, and but when they start asking, I'm like, I gotta tell you so much, and which is the one that's gonna really win, you know? So can you give us an example of someone close to you, friend or family?
Oh, this is a fun story. I'm gonna let Christine do this because it's been some personal people on her side of the family and mine too, but I'll let her start.
So like I mentioned before, my dad's side of the family is Italian, and whenever we go, most of them live in Indiana, so we would go see them every year. They knew how we would eat, and they would kind
Or
of
not eat.
and they would kind of joke us about it, and they would kind of make fun that we would eat all this butter and all this fat and.
And then the Italian grandma, food.
I mean, dinner
And-
we would have multiple salads. I mean,
Well, the thing
multiple
is, you
main
gotta be
things.
hungry, and it was like, no, we're good. Oh, but you gotta be, don't starve. We're not starving.
They couldn't
But
wrap their
it was like,
brains
we're
around
good.
that,
And
yeah.
so we almost like had to like sit at the table and act like we were eating when just,
Yeah,
and just not eat it, because that's how it got.
Yeah.
It's hard is the answer.
it is. So
Um,
they would kind of make fun of us, not in a really ugly way, but you know, they were making
Snide.
light of it, and but
Jimmy putting
eventually
butter on his steak again.
we were quietly living an example to them, because a lot of them, one of my cousins at the age of 38 had his first heart attack.
Last year.
He came to us and asked us for
He
advice.
wrote me
He
through
finally got to
Facebook,
that
yeah.
point. My dad was diagnosed with cancer in 2015. He didn't immediately start keto then, but he started about a year ago and is just doing wonderfully.
How much has he lost? Like 70 pounds?
50 pounds.
Yeah, 50 pounds.
And he's seen improvement in his blood pressure. His blood pressure is normalized.
And he recovered from the knee surgery pretty fast. It helped with
Yeah.
the healing because of the anti-inflammatory.
And several other family members started having health issues that they came to us because they
Right.
were ready.
Well, my cousin Robbie, in November last year, he had triglycerides of 800. So yes,
I've been there.
that's off the charts high, isn't it? So, and he has type 2 diabetes. And here's another thing. We like to categorize diseases as heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, obesity, all these things as different diseases. Little secret, they're the same disease. It's a disease of carbohydrate intolerance known as metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance. And so when you hear someone, oh, I've been diagnosed with heart disease, you've got to educate them to say, hey, look, that means you have a higher propensity for diabetes because it's the same disease. You have a higher propensity for getting dementia and Alzheimer's. It's the same disease. You have a higher propensity for getting obesity. Same disease. So when you start thinking of it in that way, okay, if it's all the same disease, all these chronic diseases, what's the answer to so many of those issues? You want to control blood sugar, you want to control insulin levels, you want to control inflammation levels, you want to lower A1C levels, you want to get those triglycerides down, you want to raise HDL cholesterol, you want small dense LDL particles, and if any of this is like foreign language, please ask those questions. All of those things come into line when you cut the carbs. So if you cut the carbs, and when you cut something, you need to replace that with something. So when you cut carbs, it's not higher protein, it's actually higher in fat. Because high protein can actually be detrimental, and somebody will ask that question in a minute. Why, Jimmy?
Gluconeogenesis.
Why, Jimmy? There it is. See, you guys are trainable. I love this. So there is this big long G word you need to know about. I wrote about it in Keto Clarity. It's called gluconeogenesis. That's just a big fancy schmancy word for gluco, meaning glucose. Neo, a new. Genesis means the beginning. So it's a new way to start glucose happening in the body. And people don't think about this. I'm not eating any carbs at all, and yet my blood sugar's wackadoodle. I'm gaining weight. I don't understand what's going on. What's going on is if you're eating chicken breast and think that's keto, chicken breast, I'm getting, my stomach just growled just saying chicken breast. That's crazy. Eat fattier meats, what'd you say?
Thigh.
Yeah, exactly. Eat the thigh, eat the leg, or don't. I just avoid chicken because there's actually an amino acid in chicken that is very insulinogenic. So, and maybe you guys have experienced this. When you eat chicken, you get hungry an hour later. That's an insulin response causing that hunger. So that's why if you can do a fattier steak or some kind of fatty meat. I love pork belly. And it's full of fat with the moderate amount of protein. So gluconeogenesis, that's why we describe a ketogenic diet as low carb, moderate protein, and then high in fat. Of course, people hear high fat, oh, you're just drenching everything in butter. That's not really what we're talking
You
about.
gotta remember that fat is more than twice as many calories per gram that carbohydrates and protein
9
are.
versus 4.
So it's easier to get that ratio that you need.
Oh yeah. In fact, I did a 3 gram of protein to 1 gram of fat experiment last year. Don't do that, by the way. That's a horrible idea. But just to see even like the highest of high protein that I could do, and it still was only 45% of the calories. It was still, the preponderance of it was still fat at 55%. It was miserable because gluconeogenesis was kicking my little tail. So don't do that, by the way. But I was trying to test to see the boundaries of how much protein I could tolerate. I had 15 bouts of hypoglycemia in 1 week.
We
So,
since
no
found
good.
out some of the reasons why.
Genetics
He's
stuff.
got something called the ACAT1 gene where
Yeah.
his gluconeogenesis pathway doesn't work right. So that.
So I really need to moderate
Yes,
protein.
yes.
So anyway, my cousin Robbie went keto. He's lost a bunch of weight. His triglycerides are down where they need to be, and his type 2 diabetes is almost in remission. That's how quick and how powerful it can be. And whether you realize this or not, the American Diabetes Association just acknowledged that a treatment option for diabetes, and it should have been a well-done a million years ago, but they just announced in a paper that it is an option for patients. So if you go see your doctor and he's trying to put you on all these medications and insulin, and you go, excuse me, can we try that new option? What's that? Is it called? Play down. Is it that keto thing? What is that? And then they'll have to acknowledge it. They're not yet. It hasn't filtered out to the doctors yet. So help to educate them. Yes, sir.
So, on that, I think what the doctors always told me, because my whole family is type 2 diabetic, and I was pumping I was high up my type, I was a diabetic.
Yep.
And it was, oh, you're genetic, you're gonna have it, there's nothing you can do about it, pop a pill,
Right.
and just go.
Nope.
That's what they're reverting to.
That's right.
They're always saying it's genetics, and everybody goes,
And
oh, we've
progressive.
been sold that,
That's
we've been
right.
sold
They
that.
say it's going to be worse and worse and worse
I
each
am
year, and
now
that's not true.
55 years old, and I do not have type 2 diabetes.
You go, boy.
Awesome.
So, when somebody tells you it's genetic,
There's something
Don't-
called epigenetics where you can change the expression, how
Right.
those genes express themselves.
Through lifestyle and diet choices, which is exactly what you've done. Congratulations.
Yeah.
What did your A1C go from to what?
I was 210, 215. Now I know I'm in the green. I don't
So
know.
that's your what? What is
You mean
210?
your-
That was his glucose problem.
You mean
Oh, your blood sugar.
My triglycerides were at 650 when I quit smoking.
Gotcha.
When I quit smoking at 650, now they're at 143.
Do you know your A1C?
A1C is what I asked about. You
Yep.
know, that's the key diabetes marker.
What's the number?
It would have been
Is it
over
like-
6.5 to start, and now it would be under
yes,
5.5.
Yes, I'm in the green.
Okay.
now,
Okay,
and
good.
A1C is-
And keep in mind too,
Should be off the
that,
statin.
right, and good for you getting off
Good.
the statin, because those things are poison pills. And I'm not a doctor, I didn't say that, I just believe that because I was on both Lipitor and Crestor
Yeah, he had
when I was
personal
400
experience
pounds.
with that, yeah.
So thank you for bringing up the lab test, because you say you're in green. This is another little picky thing that I have a problem with, because when you go see your doctor, they about lose their minds, right? When you see something that's high or out of range, you ever seen those things on your blood test? Those are of sick people. Doesn't mean that you're necessarily sick. Because you're trying to not be as good as a sick person, you're trying to be better than a sick person. You want to be optimally healthy. So they say for triglycerides it should be under 150. No, under 100 is the hallmark of someone that eats keto. Now you came a long way with yours, and keep going. It's going to keep going
yeah.
down. But under 70 is what you're kind of aiming for. Same with HDL cholesterol. Oh, let's just make it 30 or 40. 50 or above, and optimally over 70. So there's a functional range where you're optimally healthy, and the range that's at your doctor's office is going to be the sick people range. You want to be in sick people range? You ever seen some of those that's just such a wide disparity? It's like, wait a minute, this person right here in this normal range is the same as this person here in this part of the normal range? No. And thyroid numbers, don't get me started.
Well, just to caveat that a little
Yep.
bit, I went Ken Berry, I got rid of my doctor.
Good for you.
He's hard to hit.
Went through Ken Berry and found a doctor here that was keto and all this stuff friendly, all those things you
Yes.
I can't say, and
I don't.
I get to drink, but if you have vodka, I'll drink all day.
Dilly.
But I went to her and I switched that out. So
Yeah.
she was telling me exactly what you're saying, that when I say green, I mean that it's the.
Oh, it's in the real
It's the
green.
real green, not the.
I just didn't want everybody else
The
to think, oh, okay,
Villarreal
you're in the
green.
normal with what your doctor has. That's not the true normal. I pitched a book to my publisher. Let's make a book that shows all the real ranges. So, wish me luck. Try to get that one through. Yes, sir.
In your book, Keto Clarity,
Yep.
you make a statement, for the purposes of generating ketones, the popular low-carb notion of net carbs doesn't apply.
That's right.
Where does that put the avocado?
So the avocado, you count the carbs. And if you're allowed to have more than 20 grams of carbs, it means your carb tolerance is over 20 grams of carbs. So you count every single carb. Let me tell you where the net carb thing came from.
Oh.
So this is a cool story. It's a funny story now because when you know the context, you will never count net carbs ever again.
Amen.
The reason it came up was in 1999, there was a book called Protein Power. Anybody remember that book? So Dr. Michael and Mary Dan Eads wrote that book as a way to give people more metabolic flexibility. And they're like, how can we do this? Oh, fiber carbs don't raise your blood sugar as much. That was the key there, as much as like a simple carbohydrate would. So let's just tell people, just cut out those fiber carbs and subtract them from the total, and that will be your net effective carbs on your blood sugar. They thought it was a sophisticated system, everybody will get it, blah, blah, blah. The food companies caught wind, and they said, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Let's go make Atkins bars that have 27 grams of total carbohydrates, put a crap load of fiber in there as a sweetener, sugar alcohols they added to that as well, things like maltitol and erythritol, and you can just throw all that in there, but we subtracted because magically those things don't bother your blood sugar. The problem is they do. It might be a delayed response, but it's still a response. So to this day, and in Keto Clarity, I did it proudly 5 years ago when I wrote that book, and I'm still that way, even probably more hard-nosed today. Total carbs keeps you honest. Because you don't play the math games. And too many people have been fooled by seeing, you remember that Dreamfields pasta a few years ago? They pulled that crap as well. 5 grams of net effective carbs, and it was 37 grams of carbohydrate. They put a ton of fiber in it to bulk it up. Oh, it's net carb, and so they fool so many people. I've gotten to the point where I just don't even play the game anymore because I eat meat. Don't make it hard, and I think the simpler you make it, the easier you make it on yourself. But hopefully that answered your question.
Question here.
Okay. Yes.
My son has been, and his wife have been keto since, well, for 8 years. They're 8 years.
Yeah.
And my daughter-in-law does this medical thing on her.
Website?
Yeah.
Oh, the blood type diet?
No, it was for the Nevada area.
Okay.
And she was doing it, I don't know if they knew she was keto, but she had good sense.
To get out of that.
And she, but the doctors and nurses and stuff all
Right.
take from her. I get a big kick out of that. 'Cause I get so angry over trying to figure out how many sugars that they've got in things. And I'm not medically trained.
Right.
You finally catch on some of these things.
Right.
What
Just
she's
eat
trying to say
real
is
food.
that they put her on keto
Yeah,
about 5 years ago.
Okay.
yeah.
And she reached her goal, and she is no longer on insulin also.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Metformin was giving me stomach problems.
Yes. Notorious for that.
And I came to battle with my doctor, and I said, I am not taking any more simvastatin.
Will you
Good.
be my
I said,
grandma,
I'm
will
in
you?
my
Yes.
And I told him, we're gonna come to a parting of the ways. And I've gotta find a keto doctor.
Yes.
And I just get so fed up with
Wow.
them telling me my cholesterol is high or something
Right.
like that. And I say, the body uses cholesterol.
Why
It
are you
needs-
smarter than your doctor?
Yeah, it shouldn't be that
And
way.
that my son is, in his 8th year,
Uh-huh.
is eating just meat.
Right.
Mhm.
He doesn't need the vegetables.
That's right.
He doesn't need the fruit.
So that's called carnivore, for those of you that aren't familiar. I've been
Yeah.
doing it in 2019,
Yeah.
and I ain't stopping.
And they eat maybe one meal or,
Right, 1 meal a day, oh man.
of course, if I had keto snacks,
Mm-mm.
they'd be gone.
Well, congratulations, 84 years old, you
Yeah.
are a testament, and oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Guys, let her be the example of how you handle a doctor. I ain't doing all that.
Let me just tell you that 10 years ago, she was taking 110 units of insulin a day.
Wow.
Yeah. And I finally got it down and out.
And
By the way, on the cholesterol, you're 84 years old. In traditional cultures, free from heart disease, this blows people's minds when they learn about it. In traditional cultures, 60s, 70s, 80s, and higher, especially women, their average cholesterol. Anybody want to throw out a guess that hasn't read my book, Cholesterol Clarity? Anybody want to hazard a guess? What's normal?
240.
Total normal cholesterol. 275?
240.
240, 300. Who said that? Right on the nose. The average. So I don't know what your total cholesterol is, but the average in healthy individuals free from heart disease was 300. They never took a statin drug.
No.
They never took any of those things to artificially lower, which, oh yeah, by the way, those drugs increase your risk of diabetes, increase your risk of cancer, because remember we talked about that. They're all the same disease, right? And ironically,
Your
the
risk.
magic pill that's supposed to keep you from having a heart attack increases the very thing it's supposed to prevent, your
That's
risk of
right.
heart
My
disease.
husband is no longer taking.
And it's never, ever, ever been in a clinical trial with women. Only men who have had a previous cardiovascular event. So as a preventative tool, so if any of you ever get a doctor, and I'm coming to you next, any of you ever get a doctor that tells you, oh, you need to take this to prevent a heart attack, you tell them where the sun don't shine to kiss you. Because no, it's never been tested for that. Only with men that have had a previous cardiovascular event, but even those guys, it wasn't the cholesterol lowering effect. It was the inflammation lowering effect, and if only there was a diet that lowered inflammation. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Keto. Yes, ma'am. Oh, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to interject really quickly. We're dogging on the doctor, but I wanted to bring a perspective that they do have a standard of care that they have to abide by.
Right.
So they have to, if they see your cholesterol is at a certain level, they have
200.
to prescribe a statin. So what I tell people is take the
Smile.
prescription
Thank you.
and then just don't fill it. I mean, you know, they have to do that, or they can get sued. They can have their license taken away. So
Although that standard of care recently
it did
changed,
change, yes.
like 3 or 4 months ago. They now, when you have a cholesterol that comes in at over 200, before they can prescribe you a statin, they have to run what's called a CT heart scan. Who's read Cholesterol Clarity, my book, Cholesterol Clarity? Well, there's so many people that don't read it. I haven't read it, so I brought a few copies if you want it. But they have to run a CT heart scan, so it's a CAT scan of your chest, and what it's looking for is calcified plaque. In other words, disease.
Right.
Because that's what we're trying to look at here. There's no disease here. What are we taking a pill for, right? And so you can get that CT heart scan and you're looking for a score, definitely under 100. Christine's came back as 1, which is basically 0. And mine's been 0 twice in the last 10 years, even though I eat probably 75 to 80% of my diet as fat. Now, that's countercultural because everybody says fat clogs your arteries. My arteries aren't clogged.
Fat in the presence of
Yes, ma'am.
carbs.
Okay, so I think this is a two-part question.
Uh-oh.
I always have like multiple questions. But anyway, so initially you said if, you don't want to eat too much protein,
Correct.
but you're a carnivore. And then.
Keto carnivore, yes ma'am.
And then you talked about, net carbs, so I'm thinking vegetables fall into that range. So I know that we're supposed to eat fat. I'm trying to wrap my head around
Okay.
this because I love vegetables, but
Okay.
I know that we need to not eat certain vegetables.
Right. Starchy
And-
ones.
Starchy ones. And then I'm thinking, okay, if I become a carnivore,
But don't do that. You love vegetables.
Not everybody has to.
Don't become a
be
carnivore. You love
carnivore,
vegetables.
Yeah, so.
This girl loves her vegetables. We have
I
a
do.
garden, a 24 by 24 foot garden. She gonna eat them all because I'm carnivore.
If you
I'll
can
eat the
handle
chickens
it,
in the backyard.
this is where, if you want to know how something affects you, the best way to do that is to test your blood glucose after you eat something. But not everybody has to go carnivore. I think carnivore is great if you have gut health issues. It kind of
And it simplifies
starves the,
things, too.
yeah, it simplifies things. The key to doing carnivore is getting the fatty cuts of meat. So the rib eyes, I know they're expensive, but you
Right.
could choose other fatty sources of meat to do
But on
that.
the flip side, for her, you're kind of the other side of carnivore. You want to be kind of a plantivore with healthy fats and, right? Because you love your.
I like it all.
Okay. Fair enough. Right there with you. So I want to recommend a book. I do a show on Thursdays called Keto Talk with Jimmy Moore and Dr. Will Cole. So Dr. Will Cole is my co-host on that show. He wrote a great book last year called Ketotarian. And it's about how to do more of a plant-based styled ketogenic diet. It includes eggs, it includes fish, bits of meat if you wanted to put it in there, but it shows you how to choose the right vegetables. So get that. It should be at Barnes & Noble, wherever you get books, and it's definitely on Amazon.
Because I'm a black person, I went to the doctor's recently and, she did some tests and she said, and I told her I was doing keto, but I've lost 50 pounds since mid-October, so I'm.
Congrats.
Yeah.
She said to me, you shouldn't eat so much meat. And I'm thinking, well, it's really not meat, it's fat,
Here's the secret. Doctors don't know a damn thing about nutrition.
Okay.
What do they
So
give
we're gonna
about
leave
a
it
half
They
hour?
don't get, doctors haven't been trained in nutrition, is what I said. They don't get education. We just came off the low carb cruise. I see some guys that were here. They don't teach them in medical school about nutrition. And so if a doctor gives nutrition advice, I'm not going to my plumber to figure out how to fix my car. And you gotta think of it in that way. They're not trained, even though they got the white coat, and they all get white coat syndrome, they're the doctor, they know everything. No, they don't. And no offense to doctors, but they need to stay in their lane and fix broken bones and achy joints and that kind of thing. That's their purveyorship. That's what they're good at. If he's telling you cut the meat, cut the fat, it's only because it's what the dietary guidelines is showing, which is again unscientific. It's what they've heard from dietitians that might be in their office. All of that is designed to keep you in the system of health care. I want you to be out of the sick care system and to be healthy.
Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And as an example, Jill, I told you, at work, I have a physician provider. Very recently, we were having a little get-together and welcoming a new doctor, and so everybody pitched in and brought food, and there were donuts and there were bagels. And my doctor in the nice white lab coat walked through, and she had a bagel in her hand, and someone asked her about the bagel, and did you get a donut? And she's like, oh no, I'm gonna eat the bagel instead of the donut.
Because it's,
Same number of
Because
carbs.
It does the exact same thing. So it
Right.
doesn't matter whether it's a bagel or a donut. Once it hits your gut and digestion takes over, it turns to glucose, right?
Don't forget
But-
the fat-free cream
but-
cheese, though.
And this is a medical doctor who is actually newly graduated. She's been out of school probably 2 years
Right.
or less. And in her mind, the bagel was a healthier choice than the donut.
And that's where we are in America right now. We have this kind of dichotomy of voices trying to articulate what's going on. I think most people in general know sugar's bad news. Almost even the vegans are almost on that bandwagon now. But then you've got this fight over meat is healthy or meat is carcinogenic. So then what do you believe? So what I tell people is look at what the evidence is actually showing. And of course, evidence is kind of this gray area because you've got a lot of mouse studies, you've got what's called epidemiological research, so that's just a bunch of studies where people are observing trends and correlations, but they're not actually looking at what happens in a clinical trial where they put people in a metabolic ward, only feed them the thing that they're testing. That is good science. To date, those studies have not been done on red meat, and yet all you hear is the conjecture. Red meat causes cancer, you're gonna have bowel cancer, you're gonna die tomorrow if you eat another piece of bacon. It's like smoking 6 packs of cigarettes, you've heard all those things in the mainstream, and not one single one of those studies has been legit. In the back of my book, I see you have it there, Keto Clarity, we show you how to read those papers. I do a daily show on Instagram, called Jimmy Rants, where I will expose a lot of those kind of research studies when they come out because they scare the bejeebies out of people. And the average person, you don't know the difference between an epidemiological research, a mouse study, a randomized control trial. You don't know. You don't have time for that. I don't
When they
even
lose that argument, they switch it to, now they're switching, when they lose all those arguments, because they're gonna lose them, they go, oh, but now it's killing the environment. Then they just switch
Right.
over to the other emotional thing that is.
You
Yeah.
gotta look at who's
Well,
funding the study.
And with cholesterol, they kind of moved on from cholesterol. Now they're like, oh, you've got high iron from all that protein you eat. So there are always going to be people that I swear up and down, they're paid lobbyists to be anti-meat. And we have to acknowledge that.
There's
And so you
big
have to
money
cut through the
in
muckety-muck.
There's big money in chronic disease.
Right. Oh, and there is, exactly. So that's another
You want a
wrinkle.
large population of chronically ill people.
Right.
That's what the pharmaceutical
Slightly-
companies want, that's what the medical.
Yeah, we're just
Slightly diseased so they can keep them on a medication
Exactly.
and do procedures
Yeah.
for the rest of their
That's
life. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, and I always hate that it comes across that way. But guys, I'm not blind. You see it too. You
And-
see what's going on.
I would just like to say, you need to apply a little bit of critical thinking when you read. You don't need to put me on camera.
Yeah, I do.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do.
When you're reading these studies, because historically, what have we eaten? What has nourished man from the moment that Homo sapiens sapien walked the earth? You either hunted it or you found it. You hunted it and killed it, or you found it, and that's what you ate. These foods are not suddenly now trying to kill us. That drives me nuts.
And you also had periods of time as you were finding that you didn't eat at all.
That's right.
And that's a missing element in today's society of food availability. I mean, I could drive right through Stafford right now and pass 100 restaurants in 3 miles, probably.
That's all we got, Jimmy, is just
That's awesome.
retail food.
Town, by the way. I really like Stafford. I want to come hang out up here again. So yeah, I mean, with food availability, we've lost. We know how to feast really well. What we don't know how to do is fast. So anybody have a question on fasting? Does that sound wackadoodle to anybody? You guys are all, oh, it's wackadoodle to you?
I've been doing intermittent fasting, but I've been trying to get into the long-term fasting.
So how do you do that, you're gonna ask?
Let's see.
I think I'm there, but then I hear this long-term fasting, like 20 days.
Okay,
and
let
things
me
like
correct that.
You don't need it.
So I've done 3
You don't have
21-day
enough fat.
fasts. I did write a book on fasting, so I was doing some recon for the book, but I wanted to see what it was like. And I affectionately refer to fasting as the other F word, because when I first started, I was like, this is so silly. Oh, there it is. It was so silly in my mind that you would purposely starve yourself. And of course, I wasn't fully keto adapted when I first started thinking about fasting and heard intermittent fasting. So let's define terms. Intermittent fasting is pretty much anything 24 hours or less. That's intermittent fasting. So when you eat your last meal of the day and then you sleep at night, you wake up the next morning, you pretty much just intermittent fasting. Very short period of time, maybe 11, 12 hours, but that's a short intermittent fast. What we're talking about for therapeutic purposes is like 16-8. So 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours eating. So eat your last meal of the day at 6 o'clock. Then you wake up the next morning, I'm not really hungry. Anybody not breakfast eaters in here? Yeah, I just notoriously don't like breakfast because I'm not hungry. And then we go to maybe noon the next day and you break fast, because that's what breakfast means. All it means is break fast. So don't have to do it at 8 o'clock in the morning, it could be noon. And when you do that 6 to noon fast, that's 18 hours. How easy was that? And caveat, do not think you're still fasting if you drink bulletproof coffee. I will slap it out of your hand if you think you're fasting. Are you controlling insulin? Yes. But are you getting all the benefits of fasting? No. So, to your question, how do you go longer? Here's how you do it. Do you regularly 16-8?
Yeah, I stop eating at 6 and I usually wait till 12 the next day.
Okay, so you already do
But
exactly
I
what you said.
hit the coffee.
What, you do the
Just
bulletproof
just
coffee?
do black coffee.
Well, just coffee and,
Oh, you do black coffee's fine.
coffee with coconut powder in it.
Okay.
Coffee with
Yeah,
butter.
so the problem is fasting has to have a very distinctiveness from feasting. So if you have, and people often say, well, I just had a little bit of calories. You actually do more harm when you have a little bit of calories than if you ate no calories at all during your fast. So I'm going to challenge you, remove that coconut powder, have it black, maybe a splash of cream if you need a little something, but it would be minimal calories. That's kind of the point of what you're trying to do there. So that when you're fasting, you're truly giving your pancreas a break. Because even that little bit of coconut powder, which is great, it's stoking an insulin response because it has to deal with that. Yes, ma'am.
So when you, okay, I practice intermittent fasting, but should we like switch up the amount of time we fast periodically, or like I've been doing 16-8 like the whole time, so I should do something different?
I'm a fan of let it come naturally.
Okay.
Because I think, and please chime in, when you go periods of time and you fall into the same pattern, I think your body gets used to that. So change it up. There's some days I do what's called alternate day fasting. I'll eat Monday, but then Tuesday, nothing. And then I'll eat Wednesday, and that ends up being about a 42-hour fast when you do it that way. And then maybe you go 3-4 days, you just push the envelope just to see how you do. If at any point you decide, okay, Jay Moore, I gotta quit this, I gotta eat, go for it. Most of the time when you think you're hungry, you're actually either thirsty or you don't have enough salt. And so we get this Redmond's Real Salt. If you've never had that before, it's gonna change your life, I promise you. Or pink Himalayan sea salt, get a pinch of it, put it underneath your tongue, let it ooze there, and it gives you the sensation of having a meal. And you'd be surprised, all that hunger you thought you had that you couldn't get through it, you get through it. And so I don't do 21-day fasts anymore, to your question. I think you get most of the benefits from like a 5 to 7 day fast. And then that allows you to then rest for a couple weeks and do it again if you wanted to do it. So I'm a bigger fan now of 5 to 7 days. And the key is 3 days. Get to that 72-hour mark and you get this other A word called autophagy. And so the guy that won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2015 actually won for his work looking at the role that fasting plays with autophagy. And all that means is like a roto-rooter cleaning up all the dead proteins that float around in your body. And the only way to remove it, there's no pill that does it, there's no dieting method that does it. Fasting for 72 hours cleans it all up, turns your cells over, and that's why your poops are glorious after you do it. See, I'm comfortable with you guys. I can talk about food.
Have you worked with insulin-dependent diabetics in fasting?
My clients, I have a couple of them that are diabetic, but I'm not responsible for adjusting their medications. As nutritional therapy practitioners, we don't diagnose issues. We work alongside the doctors. So if I happen to have a client that has diabetes or something like that, I tell them to, if they have a concern, go see their doctor. But if I happen to improve their situation through nutrition, hey, that's a great side effect of that, but I don't directly treat the medical condition. That's a little bit outside my purveyorship.
And can I just add that if you do have somebody who is on insulin, like for instance, she was, you have to monitor your blood sugar very carefully, because you are going to need to adjust your insulin, and that falls in partnership with your doctor, not with your nutritional therapist.
And I have a story about that, because I had a lady write me on Instagram Live recently, or Instagram message recently, and she said, this keto thing, it's horrible. I'm like, what's the matter? She said, oh, my blood sugar just tanks every single time I eat it. It's just like 50s and I feel crappy. I'm like, all right, tell me a little more about what's going on. Yeah, I've been type 2 diabetic, been on all these medications, and I went keto, and blah, blah, blah. I said, hang on, are you still taking the medication? Well, yeah, my doctor has me on this. I'm like, sweetie, drop the med and watch what happens.
Yeah.
She dropped the med, her blood sugar was normal, she got to throw the med away, but she was blaming it on keto, not realizing the power that that drug was having. She had no idea because the doctor doesn't explain this is going to artificially lower your blood sugar, so if it's already low from keto, duh, you're gonna have hypoglycemia. Yes, ma'am.
You talk about intermittent fasting. Do you permit or suggest bone broth during that?
Yes.
So when I first started,
Yes.
I did bone broth, and I did kombucha, and I did keeping it under the 200 calories that Dr. Fung and I talked about in our book. That was a mistake. Because what I found was that even that little bit of nutrition, which bone broth is mostly protein, was stoking hunger. And so I'm like, why am I so ravenous?
And it's not the same for everybody.
Right, for me, that's what
Right,
it did.
yeah.
Now, there are popular books out there where the bone broth diet is basically this way. Where you drink the bone broth during the daytime, you have a meal at night. So, yeah, you're right. And I'm not anti-bone broth. I think it's a great idea as part of your ketogenic lifestyle. Please do it. And I cook everything in bone broth and butter and Redmond sea salt. Yeah. I'm a chef. Just kidding. So during a fast, try it with that. I think the mistake people make is they think they need that when they're fasting. And I've come to the conclusion you get far better benefits focusing on salt primarily and ample water. And the more water you drink, the more salt you need to take in because you're going to flush out the electrolytes, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you break the fast? Is there
There is this magical formula.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's
but-
called food. But no, seriously, so there is a progression.
variety
So
of progression.
are you referring to an intermittent fast? There's nothing to break. It's called eating that day.
Okay.
So if you're doing a longer fast, I would define anything 72 hours or more
Okay.
as an extended fast, a longer fast. That's going to be a little trickier because at that point you haven't given your body any food, and I've done 3 21-day fasts, so like deep into the fast, and on that day 21, when you break it, you hadn't had any food in 21 days, which by the way, you're still pooped all the way to 21. People are like, oh, you get it all out in a couple of days. No, there's still, I know it's gross, but you're not eating. There's stuff that just keeps coming out. It's the most wicked thing. If anything, just do it just to watch that. It's kind of cool. I'm easily entertained, yes. Just, we're not going to put that on Instagram Live, though.
Like it's already there.
No, I mean, no 21-day poop on Instagram. So, where was I going with that?
Oh, how to properly break a
Oh, break
fast.
Yes, so 1 hour before the meal you're going to have a little something. A little small salad, a few nuts, just something small. Because what you're going to try to do, the objective is to get the blood flowing back to the stomach again. Because you hadn't had anything going there in a long time. You got to get the blood flowing again. So you're stimulating all those digestive enzymes to start working up again. So that when you do eat your normal meal, and we get to that in a second, then you don't have this painful experience. Because a lot of people, if you think you're going to be so ravenous, you want to just, but it doesn't really happen. What ends up happening is whatever your normal meal would have been, consider it's going to be about a third to half of what you could eat. You know, people say, well, your stomach shrank. Well, your stomach doesn't actually shrink, but your need for that food is significantly less. Now, as you get back into eating the next few days, it does come back to that normal again. But when you're breaking it, break it gently, unless you like pain.
Jimmy, I have a notice that you have like 1 minute
Okay.
remaining.
Yeah, if it ends, in fact, bye guys, go ahead and end it if you want to. Here, I'll end it. Say bye, everybody. Bye, everybody. All right, yeah, it just means Jimmy's